very
Hi,
important.
welcome back to Miss Lake's YouTube channel.
Do you want to introduce everybody?
Yes.
Come on. My favorite student.
Hi, welcome back to Miss Lake's YouTube channel. Today we are learning about finding the midpoint of A and B.
Woo! Here we go. All right. How do you find the midpoint? I'll give you a hint. There's a formula. It's called the blank formula. How do you find the midpoint? I know it sounds like I'm asking a really tricky question. I'm actually asking a really easy question. To find the midpoint, you use the blank formula. Think of the most obvious answer it could be. To find the midpoint, you need the blank formula. When I tell you the answer, you're going to be like, oh, that was too easy. To find the midpoint, you need the blank formula. You need the midpoint formula. Too easy, right? Okay. Guys, when you see something that says find the midpoint, you should automatically think, I need the midpoint formula. Do you have to have it memorized? Hello?
Yeah.
No, you do not.
Oh.
It's on your EOC reference sheet, okay? And you can also use this in your notes on the quiz. I've already passed that information along that you're allowed to use the formula. The midpoint formula is, I think I should use a lowercase m. The midpoint formula is basically taking the average of your x values to find your x coordinate and the average of your y values to find the y coordinate. To find your midpoint, it's going to be somewhere on this line in the middle, right? But since it's not like a perfect like eyeballing situation, we can maybe guess something along the lines of that, but it's probably going to be a decimal number or a fraction coordinates. So we need our formula to get the exact number, okay? So again, if we need the average of the x values and the average of the y values, when I say x values and y values, the x values and y values of what? The average of the x values and y values of what? What points? What points am I referring to? If I need the average of my x values and the average of my y values. I'll give you a hint. The points are on the coordinate plane. What points should I be? Yeah, points A and B. So we're looking at the end points. If we want to find the middle, we need our end points. So the first thing I'm going to do, well actually I'll go ahead and finish the midpoint formula. Again, this does not have to be memorized. You can either write it down here and use it in your notes tomorrow on the quiz, or use your EOC reference sheet. So to find the average of two numbers, what do? Add them up and then
Divide
by
2.
Good. So if it's two numbers, you add it up and divide by 2. So we'll take our first value of x and our second value of x, divide by 2. That will give us our x coordinate. For our y coordinate, we have our first value of y plus our second value of y divided by 2. So all we're looking for is a coordinate pair that will represent the midpoint, and we're just finding the averages. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make like a little organized list of my first point and my second point. My first point A is, let's see, okay, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on my x, -5 on my y is what? Somebody call it out.
-4.
-4, thank you. Then for B, I have what?
-3.
-3. And then +3. Very good. So these are my points I'm just gonna organize them and say that this is my X column and this is my Y column. So if I need to find the average of my X values, I just take my two X values, add them together, and divide by 2. I'll go ahead and do it over here, okay? How do I write that? I'm adding up my X values. What do I add?
The -5, -3.
Yes, very good. My X column is right here. So I have my -5 plus -3 divided by 2. And what's that? -5 plus -3 is -8. And then divide by 2 and you get -8 divided by 2?
-4.
-4. There we go. And look, doesn't that start to line up? If that's going to be our X value of our midpoint, look. 1, 2, 3, 4, -4, and it looks like it's going to go down just a little bit, right? Now, again, I just randomly selected a midpoint just by looking at it, so I don't know if it's exactly where it should be. But let's do our average of our Y values. What would I be adding together for our Y values? -4 and what?
Plus 3.
Yeah, -4 plus 3 divided by 2. Now here's where we're going to end up with a decimal, right? Or a fraction, which is fine. So -4 plus 3 is, Dan, pay attention.
7?
No.
-7?
We have a negative plus a positive. So what rule do we use? What?
1.
That's the correct absolute value. Should it be positive or negative?
Negative.
Because
Because
the bigger absolute value is negative, right? That's
Yeah.
our rule. Okay, so we have -1 over 2. Now, I'm not quite sure if your book wants you to, or if your digital book wants you to put it as a fraction or a decimal, but both answers are correct. If for some reason you put it as a,
Wait, what's -1 over 2 as a decimal?
you tell me what's -1/2 as a decimal.
Oh, -0.5.
Yeah, so it could either be -4 and then -0.5.
I don't even know what to do.
If for some reason, if it doesn't specify which one to put,
You can't put it on fraction.
you can?
No.
Okay, then it would just be a decimal. So -4 and then -0.5, and that's your midpoint.
Numeric values.
You should go over all of them.
Okay, well, I'll do my best. Yeah, all right, well, did this help?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, now here's the deal. Since you might not be allowed to use, because if you have the same numbers on your quiz, you're not going to be allowed to use these same numbers. So what I would write to myself for the notes is identify, you want to write this down, identify end point coordinates. And then use midpoint formula. And then if you want to write the midpoint formula as part of that, it's right here, this big thing right here. It's your midpoint formula. Remember, it looks really big and complicated, but what we're really doing is we're just scrunching it down to find a coordinate pair. And then the last thing I would say is plug in your values and solve. If you want to write extra notes to yourself, where you want to say, write your coordinate points on top of each other with an X and Y column, if you wanted to do that, and you wanted to add words to this, that's totally fine. You can write as many notes to yourself as you want. You just can't use notes that have the exact same numbers as this. Does that make sense? All right, let's move on. What's another one that you need help with?
Number 2.
Number 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so this one, I'm gonna do a separate recording for this one.